Despite missing a starter, UCLA basketball had their best game all year long against Presbyterian.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson Yoxheimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. Thanks for tuning in to the #1 sports podcast network. Yeah, that's right. Locked On Podcast Network is the #1 sports podcast network out there. And hey, let's tell you about this episode. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And hey, let me tell you about this episode. We're talking about more UCLA athletics mismanagement about the NIL. We're talking about Nico and his potential to play versus Washington. But let's lead with UCLA finally dominating opponent like they should. UCLA in this game was favored by close to 25 to 30 points. Huge, huge spread in this game. And yet UCLA said, all right, we're ready to go. They won it by 40. The biggest news of the day was the fact that Tyler Bilodeau, one of UCLA's leading scorers, one of the better players the Bruins have on their roster, was unavailable because he sprained his knee. So that means UCLA could very well go through these next couple of weeks, very well through the beginning of Big Ten play without Tyler Bilodeau. Well, the Bruins didn't miss a beat, and the only question mark remained, who would be starting with Bilodeau out? And surprisingly, it was Brandon Williams. I did not expect it to be a Booker, Williams, Dent, Clark, Daly Jr. lineup. I thought UCLA might, if Bilodeau would be out, you go Booker, you move Daly back to the 4, and then slot either Jamar Brown as the 3, or you move in the likes of Trent Perry and go very small in the backcourt. Instead, with what UCLA's done so much to help EDJ move from the 4 to the 3, Cronin, at least in this matchup versus Presbyterian, gave Brandon Williams, the redshirt sophomore, his chance to shine, his first true chance to start this year, and he did pretty solid. Hit a 3, 11 points, but that was just the opinion. That was just how the team played. They just looked smooth. They came out and wanted it. It was a game you're like, oh, they're going to win this by 40. You knew that from the opening jump. You knew that from the way UCLA was shooting. And despite the fact they only hit 6 of 12 threes, UCLA shot over 60%. So a game after UCLA played Sac State, held them to under 25% from the floor. UCLA scored almost 90%, shot over 60 plus percent from the floor, shot 50% from 3. Wow, keeping Presbyterian, the Blue Hose, to under 35% from the floor. It was also 17 forced turnovers. Presbyterian didn't have what it took to upset UCLA or make this game close. But the Bruins, unlike in their previous performances, didn't keep Presbyterian in this one. So Presbyterian fell to 3-5. UCLA unbeaten in Pauley Pavilion, unbeaten in true home games. They are 5-1 overall. So who are the other standout performers? Well, you have to lead with Sky Clark because some of the early possessions and some possessions in the second half led to some handoffs to Clark, just him going one-on-one versus the defender and taking it to the cup. Some things that I thought we would see with Donovan Dent, just taking it off to dribble off the bounce and get into the hole easily. UCLA said, hey, let's let Sky Clark get some buckets, build some confidence, and get easy matchups. Clark did that to the tune of 22 points on 11 shots. That is efficiency at its finest. That is dominance. And those are moves that led to easy buckets. It's not like he was walking in the lane, just getting wide open hoops. He was beating his man off the dribble. So it was nice to see Donovan Dent didn't have to command too much of the offense. And Donovan Dent also still had 14 points with 5 assists. The jump shot from 3 is not there from Dent. But it was nice to see an efficient night for him. Brandon Williams with 11 points, Xavier Booker with 9 points, EDJ made all of his shots, 7 points, 4 boards. So you're like, oh, why didn't he put up 15 and 10? Well, he made all his shots. So the starting lineup brought it this time. This was the regular starting 5, and if Bilodeau was healthy and didn't get hurt in practice, he would have been out there with the rest of his boys. So now the concern moving forward is Mick Cronin going to continue to put Brandon Williams out there as that smaller power forward? Is he ready to take on a role that can fill the absence of Tyler Bilodeau? There's no way he's going to contribute in the same way Bilodeau can. But is Williams, a year removed from college basketball during his redshirt season, ready to at least contribute a little bit better defensively and rebounding than Bilodeau ever could? Because what Bilodeau brings to the table is a lot of scoring. He can spread the floor, has an automatic mid-range game that Williams just isn't going to bring right now. So for UCLA, they want to see the growth of a Jamar Brown in the lineup. Brown tonight, the super senior, 9 points, 7 boards. Trent Perry in this game, 9 points, 3 assists, a rebound, coming off the bench, but played more than 24 minutes. So it's nice to see UCLA spread the minutes between all the guys who deserve minutes. Now, Steven Jamerson was healthy, so he played 16 minutes. Nice to see what UCLA is able to do, spreading the wealth, getting a lot of love to all these players who can get in, and even getting some walk-ons or preferred walk-ons like the Seidlers, like the Oris of the world, to win this game easily. For the first time, UCLA was like, we're not messing around. We're going to come out and dominate. And we saw spurts of that for UCLA versus Sac State. And now in the second part of this Empire Classic, if you will, UCLA did the same thing to Presbyterian, a team that they didn't let hang around and early dominated. Best game of the year by far. Would I say no notes? There's always some notes. Now the question is, where's UCLA go from here? They got a couple of days off. They take on Cal, who should be an easy UCLA win. But with Bilodeau out, Cal probably going to be jazzed up to play UCLA, albeit in the Chase Center. UCLA has to travel for the first time outside of Southern California, albeit still in the same state, and take down the Cal Golden Bears. So it's another power conference opponent, and I think UCLA will be prepared. But the missing of Bilodeau, the absence of Bilodeau, will represent something that will put the Bruins at a disadvantage when they play potentially Oregon and Washington in a couple of weeks, when they play the likes of Cal right before Thanksgiving. But they do have time to get Bilodeau healthy. I believe Cronin was quoted after the game as saying, yeah, it might be a couple of weeks, but you just never know. When the kid's got a sprained knee, you're like, man, that's not something you want to hear in the midst of any part of the season. Well, it happened in November. It looks like he's good to go later in the year, and the Bruins didn't miss a beat. They didn't let it affect them, and still absolutely dominated Presbyterian. The offense was clicking, and that's without one of their better shooters, without one of their better mid-range shooters, and one of the guys that kind of keeps this offense moving if it stalls. It did not stall in this game. Didn't need to stall against Presbyterian, college of all teams. And the Bruins said, no, we're not going to mess around. We're going to go out, get in, get out, get the job done, and get a W. And that's what UCLA did. So great to see that flawless performance. Mostly flawless performance. Next, going to talk about UCLA could be in the works for an upset against Washington because their quarterback might be making a return. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. It's quite frankly wrapping up pretty soon, and that's why you want to get in on the tailgates. Maybe the last one at the Rose Bowl. The rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's nothing like it, but let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. The endless queues, the hidden fees, the prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. The easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices, no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And when you're going on Gametime and you want to go check out UCLA potentially playing at the Rose Bowl for the last time, look at those ticket prices hovering, last I checked, close to the $30 range. And if you want to get a last-minute deal right up to kickoff, go check out the Rose Bowl, pull up Gametime, you're like, oh, this is a chance to get a perfect ticket, look at your view, and then get a good deal on a ticket at the Rose Bowl. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. So earlier this week, I had my crossover with Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies, and the big question at the time was whether Nico would play against UCLA. That was a bit of concern because UCLA's starting quarterback, kind of at the last minute versus Ohio State, was declared out. Had a concussion. The symptoms materialized after the Maryland game, no, not the Maryland game, after the Nebraska game, and then the Bruins found themselves traveling to Columbus against the number one team in the country where their starting quarterback was unavailable to play. And that led to Luke Duncan playing. The offense didn't take shots. They protected the redshirt sophomore quarterback who was not going to get thrown into the fire by taking deep shots down the field. They said, hey, this is his first start, first attempted passes at UCLA. The Bruins did not want to risk ruining his confidence. So when UCLA got their butts kicked, expectedly against the Buckeyes, you wondered what UCLA team was going to step on the field versus Washington. Very well could be the last game ever for UCLA in the Rose Bowl. So when Ben Bolge put out there, hey, the news, Ben Bolge of the LA Times, who covers UCLA, that Nico is cleared to play, there's an expectation that Nico could start. Now, remember last week, it was kind of out of the blue, out of nowhere, that Nico was unexpected to play. So maybe there's something that might twist at the last moment. But the way things are trending, Nico Iamaleava is expected to play. And here's what are important factors in this game. One, UCLA, the most important storyline is that this could be the last chance UCLA plays a home game at the Rose Bowl. You want to end that with a solid stretch. Now, the best memory this year was beating Penn State. A fun little memory was beating Maryland. But the last chance you get to play at the Rose Bowl, potentially, is against this Washington team. And even if it's not, you still want to go out and end the season, the home season, with a bang. This could very well be the last time Nico plays a home game in front of his SoCal friends and family. Whether he stays at UCLA, whether he decides to test the NFL draft waters, or heads to the portal, those are all different things, most of which might be leaning Nico not being in a UCLA uniform in the Rose Bowl again or in the UCLA blue and gold. We'll see how that plays out. But the Bruins do have a much better chance of winning this game versus Washington if Nico's dual threat ability is available for Jerry Neuheisel to call plays, for the Noah Mazzoni offense to come out and, all right, when did it work well? When he was officially the offensive coordinator back in the day at UCLA? Well, when Brett Hundley was there. And now you bring in Neuheisel's ability to expand the playbook again a little bit more with Nico at the helm. Then he can deal with the physical Washington front. And if he plays, I think UCLA can certainly upset the Huskies. Absolutely. Washington's coming off a bitter loss versus Wisconsin just a few weeks ago. So you bring in a five-star level quarterback, one of the top transfer QBs in the country. And yes, while it's been up and down this year for the UCLA quarterback, he plays, UCLA has a chance to win. That's just how it is. Now, should UCLA pin their future on Nico from the current to the near future to next year with wrapping it all together as the coaching hiring process is in place? Well, maybe Nico is sitting there trying to impress his future head coach. The Bruins are certainly in potentially on Jedd Fisch. Now, there's been Bob Chesney rumors. There's been Sean Lewis thrown around. And then Jedd Fisch, who for a long while has been a betting favorite to leave Washington and come to UCLA, get some SoCal roots, get his family together because his family's living in Arizona, not in Seattle, and maybe return to the SoCal area and coach UCLA, restart the timer, and maybe be coaching Nico next year. Or he could bring in the Washington starting quarterback. That's a whole another can of worms we're not going to dive into right now. But the biggest thing is Nico cleared to play. If he plays, UCLA looks so much better offensively when their leading rushers available, when the Bruins can maybe open the playbook a bit more and then do something against a Washington team that has to be honest if Nico's playing. If Luke Duncan's playing, then I would assume Washington would press the coverage, play tight, and force Luke Duncan to beat him deep, and they wouldn't even have to spy the quarterback. Now with Nico, there's a couple of things Washington's going to have to watch out for, whether it's Nico running, design run, scrambling, the UCLA running game, or Nico moving the chains to the receivers, some of which might be playing their last game in the Rose Bowl like a Titus Mokia Atsamalala honored on senior day. So the Bruins glad to have their starting QB back, expected to play, and we'll see how the Bruins respond. Could be a whole lot of lasts for UCLA this Saturday night. And I'm going to be there. I'll be there rooting for the Bruins. Maybe it'll be cold, maybe it'll be a little warm, but a fun tailgating afternoon where there will be no rain, no weather to speak of that I'm expecting from what I've seen from the weather report. It'll just be a nice, cool autumn evening here in mid to late November before Thanksgiving. And hopefully the students show up. Hopefully we all show up and pack the Rose Bowl as much as we can. Not for Nico, not for Jed Fish, just for the sheer fact that we've enjoyed being in the Rose Bowl for these 40 plus years. And if it's not the end, then we've convinced, hopefully, the administration to not waste millions of dollars of whether it's the private equity fund, whether it's the, oh, we've misused funds for NIL for Bruins for Life, more on that in a second, or used all these other opportunities to just, hey, instead of wasting or using our funds to go get a new head coach, let's spend all these millions of dollars instead of pouring into facilities and just get out of this contract with the Rose Bowl and move to SoFi. So let's just go enjoy this one. And hopefully it's a dub and we can smile. Bittersweet it might be, but man, it'd be great if UCLA can beat UW one last time. I can remember when the Bruins beat Washington in 2022, when that was a Washington team that was a year away from getting to the national championship game with a large part of that roster intact. That's how close UCLA was just a couple years ago. That's how competitive they were with DTR, Jake Bobo, Zach Charbonnet, and Chip Kelly. Now, unfortunately, Chip Kelly didn't want to keep building. Washington had Penix put on a Heisman performance of a year, of a lifetime, earned him an NFL spot, and then Washington ran it all the way to the championship game, while UCLA is sitting here trying to hire another head coach. So, Nico's available to play. UCLA has a chance to certainly win this game, and I think they just might pull out some last-second magic throughout this one. But next, let's talk about the bad. UCLA Athletics has another ugly eyesore on their record, considering of this latest report. I'll tell you next on Locked On UCLA. The NBA is back. The NFL slowly coming to a close. College football is coming to a close. There's no better way and better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you missed the start of the game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who'll score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps the game more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. UCLA, according to FanDuel, here's the spread against Washington. They're plus 10.5. They're 10.5 point dogs at home with Nico expected to play. If I'm you and you're a new customer and you're like, what's the best $5 bet I can place? I would take UCLA in the points there. If Nico plays and the Bruins playing in their last home game ever at the Rose Bowl, potentially, man, you might want to lay the points with UCLA. 10.5 point dogs against Washington. You might want to do that because Washington has not played well on the road with Jed Fish as head coach. So right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, cruising on here in the Locked On UCLA podcast. Even more crisis, more ugly news coming out of UCLA. What have we had this year? We've had UCLA having to fire their head coach in season just 3 games after. We've seen multiple coordinators changing spots and being let go, from the Tino Samseries to the Akaika Malloys. Then you bring in the crazy saga that was Nico and all the noise that brought with it despite the embarrassment early. And they're like, okay, maybe things have calmed down. Well, UCLA then is getting sued by the city of Pasadena and the Rose Bowl. There's a temporary restraining order filed potentially against them before the judge shot it down because UCLA wants to leave the Rose Bowl. And oh, by the way, if that wasn't enough for you, UCLA might have potentially broken IRS rules. What do I mean by all that? And somehow Nico's involved? Well, not quite. But because Nico was available, there was a lot of donations, if you will. UCLA wasn't getting a lot of donations in the NIL front. That's where UCLA's been significantly behind. where Deshaun Foster did a good job recruiting, trying to build this up, but some of which his failure, if you will, was not even his fault. His inability to get all this put together does not fall on Deshaun Foster. Here's what I mean by this. According to David Cavucci, if I'm saying that correct, FOIA Ball, it's FOIA Ball, it's a newsletter, and they dove in a little bit deeper about potential private benefits and what UCLA was doing as a program with Bruins for Life, because there was a lot more potential for UCLA to get NIL opportunities to Nico. So what happens? This isn't something about Nico or Nico's camp. This is how UCLA specifically handled this potential money. There was about $60,000, according to Cavucci's article, when Nico was getting ready to potentially leave Tennessee. And then out of nowhere, UCLA, instead of having the money donated to the official collective Bruins for Life, the donations were directed elsewhere, which was a charity for an at-risk youth fund, and that was Shelter 37. The problem was that that's a tax-exempt charity, and NIL donations, NIL funds aren't tax-exempt. You can't get a tax write-off from that. So UCLA's James Washington, who is the big head of Bruins for Life, runs Shelter 37. So the NIL payments, they're not private benefits that you can get tax write-offs. Well, if you donated through the Shelter 37, that was a workaround. And instead, UCLA was not doing this correctly. So think about another potential issue where UCLA is trying to funnel money, where they had this Bruins for Life whole restructured umbrella, if you will, to the Olympic sports. You had the Men of Westwood, and then you had Bruins for Life. So UCLA was splitting things off for men's basketball, football, and then these other sports. And you're like, champions of Westwood, well, what's going on here? And all of a sudden, it's convoluted. And with this all falling potentially on the head of the UCLA athletic department, you would think, okay, is this truly Martin's fault, Martin Jarmond? The big name here, though, to learn is James Washington, whose charitable fund he was in charge of, including running UCLA's NIL campaign for football, failing. The Bruins for Life website is slowly come out of nowhere, according to Cavucci's article on FOIA Ball, about how these gifts to support the program with NIL opportunities through tax-exempt donations isn't exactly legal. And you're like, what? And now the NIL website, which is already confusing, is gone, Bruins for Life. One quote that kind of stuck with me a few months ago was Deshaun Foster. I believe he was talking to the media. I don't exactly remember when, but he said there is some confusion onto where the money was going NIL-wise, like which branch or something. And he kind of said that. I forget exactly when it was. He was meeting with the press, he was meeting with the media members, and he said something of it wasn't exactly clear where the money was for some donations or some people who were trying to give money to the program. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. How are you so off with that? And that's not Deshaun's fault. That's just how things are being funneled. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of calls for Martin's job. There was just, okay, we didn't know how much of a disaster it was yet. And only to come and find out that maybe what Deshaun Foster was talking about way back when was maybe this exact situation where people were being confused and being, wait, why are we going to Shelter 37 when we're trying to do Bruins for Life? And then you have the Wooden Athletic Fund, which is not a part of this situation at all. And that's where there's so much confusion that you're like, oh, do I have to be a Wooden Athletic Fund member to get UCLA football season tickets? Then we're trying to spend money for football, basketball through Bruins for Life, Men of Westwood, Champions of Westwood. There's different umbrellas. And oh, by the way, we're not even doing this legally. And there's emails according to FOIA Ball of how it should have been redirected. This money, this initial money that came in, was being redirected through this charitable fund and then back, so that it would be tax-free. And it's just like, what is going on? Like, what are we doing here? And in the end, I'm thinking this all has to fall on somewhat of Martin's shoulders, Martin Jarmond. He's not really named in this, but with James Washington there, who's probably going to get in the most trouble if this is all brought to legal issues, if this is all put together, then you're like, oh, there's going to be some serious problems here. And with the football players already yelling at Martin, with the fact that the Rose Bowl is suing, the city of Pasadena is suing UCLA, the Bruins, who moved to the Big Ten, have to pay tens of millions of dollars to Cal just for moving to the Big Ten. And oh, by the way, this situation comes in because you're not even running your NIL correctly, and you might even get checked out by the IRS. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? That all falls in the leader of the athletic department. And now you've got Julio Frank, the chancellor of UCLA, who's been slowly trying to be like, all right, let me work my way around campus. Let's look here, let's look there. UCLA's trying to woo the next football coach to come to UCLA. And it's like, okay, maybe you're just trying to create headaches by moving from the Rose Bowl to SoFi. Okay. And then you see this. So the next UCLA football coach is not only trying to transform the optics of the program, encourage the fans to come in, encourage the new players, whether it's transfer portal, current commits, or future commits, get staff members, get people here and engage. You have to literally restructure or be a part of a complete overhaul of potentially the UCLA athletic department and the NIL system, which has already been overhauled, restructured, rebranded from its initial birth, from its new name, Bruins for Life, which the website apparently doesn't even exist anymore. And you're like, well, you type in Bruins for Life, it has nothing to do with UCLA if you look at bruinsforlife.com. And you're like, well, what's going on here? It's just more mistakes after more mistakes where you can't have a letter that's pleading for your athletic director to go by former football players. You can't get sued by the city in the Rose Bowl. Now you're going to get more legal trouble. What are we doing? This is as embarrassing as it gets. And we thought the football team losing the first 3 games of the year, 4 games of the year was as embarrassing as it gets. No, now the off the field issues have become close to devastating. This could go very bad. And maybe it's not going to shine its light. I'm not as good in the legalese of this all, how this is going to affect UCLA, or maybe it's just James Washington. But the fact is, if this is just the beginning, if UCLA has been doing more than this, and according to David Cavucci's article of Foyaball about how this Bruins for Life has literally been Bruins for some issues here, breaking the rules, not Bruins for Life, but let's not do this correctly. How do you just tell the donors to spend more money when you don't know what a wooden fund is? And that's been more increasingly expensive. The fans, I've heard multiple times complain about that. Then you're trying to get this new wave to spend money to go to football games, a lot of which are frustrated about the Rose Bowl. And then you have the NIL, which can't even be structured correctly. How are you supposed to go spend the money on a coach when the UC Regents were like, all right, yeah, like you could go spend money on a coach. And now all this public money that we're trying to somewhat give to the university, whether it's for NIL or give to maybe a new football coach, you're like, wait a minute, this public money is going to be used to spend fighting legal dollars for Pasadena and Rose Bowl. And then you're going to fight this. Maybe this is going to be more James Washington situation, but there's no way UCLA is going to potentially come out clean with this shady operation. I don't know what this means. I don't understand it fully, but the fact that the Cavucci article from Foyaball is just like opening the doors to just what's going on behind the scenes. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. Like, what are we doing? It's embarrassing. Like, what's it going to take? Is this Martin's fault? Is this not Martin's fault? Is this just James Washington did something super dumb? Like, what is going on with this even coming out? Like, I thought the Rose Bowl situation was bad. We're just getting worse and worse and worse. I don't even know what the next bombshell that could break for UCLA athletics is. Like, I really don't. If you can think of something, bring it up because it could very well be happening for better or for worse. I don't even know. And until next time, great work by David Cavucci, who unveiled all this, wrote about it in his own newsletter, Foyaball, Foia Ball. Go check it out. It's a free newsletter. Go sign it up. Read on the emails that are there, all the different parts that Shelter 37 versus Bruins for Life, and how it just makes no sense. It's not even legal. And UCLA is like, well, shucks. Goodness gracious. Now, of course, it's been denied by James Washington and company, but go read for yourself. It's just wild that this is even being alleged and happening right now. This is nuts. The fact that they're even being potentially investigated for this. The fact that it's coming out into the light of day. Embarrassing. Now, there has to be action. There has to be. How can they just keep slapping themselves on the wrist? This mistake, this mistake. You might need a new leader in charge. And you can't just keep watching from afar. This is stuff that is so bad and so dumb that if it happened over a course of a couple of years, the Rose Bowl, the inability of the donor data getting leaked earlier, football players wanting to fire, and then this is all happening in a few months, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening and watching at home. This is all happening in a few months, some of which in a couple of weeks. And we're just sitting there like, yeah, just a normal day. Just a normal day. What? I don't think we should accept this anymore. You shouldn't. I shouldn't. Julio Frank shouldn't. And I think action is demanded, and it might be coming sooner rather than later. And the problem with this all is we were just asking for the football team to get a good coach and some support. And now you might even be handcuffing your own team, your own program from getting the Bob Chesneys of the world, getting the next superstar, the next Kurt Signetti, the next big name, and helping them and set them up for success because of nonsense like this. Instead of just saying, oh, we might have the private equity fund for hundreds of millions of dollars to use for anything. We could go get new money and spend it on the coach that the UC Regents already approved. What's this going to make the UC Regents or anybody else want to approve UCLA spending more money on athletics? It's not. It's not going to convince the UC Regents to up the potential pay for a football coach, to convince any donors, any fans to come to games and be like, oh, let's go spend NIL for a future quarterback. It's not, because we don't even know where the money's going. If it's legal, if it's not, that's just going to scare everybody off. Ridiculous. So go check it out about the alleged workings behind the scenes. It's great work, just not by UCLA. Great work by David Cavucci to bring this out. Until then, we're still going to A-clap, fans. We're still going to A-clap. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight by fight. This has been Locked on UCLA. Zach signing off. Don't forget that post-game reaction, UCLA Washington. We'll get it as soon as we get home on this channel. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.